Old John was a slave, you know, and there was old Massa and old Missy and the two little children, a girl and a boy. Well, John was working in the field, and he seen them children out on the lake in a boat, just a-hollering. They had done lost their oars and was about to turn over. So then he went and told old Massa and old Missy. Well, old Missy, she hollered and said, it's so sad to lose these, 'cause ain't never going to have no more children. Old Master made a hush, and they went down to the water and followed the shore around till they found him. John pulled off his shoes and hopped in and swum out and got in the boat with the children and brought them to shore. Well, Massa and John take him in the house. So they was all so glad 'cause the children got saved. So Master told them to make good crop that year and fill up the barn, and then when he laid by the crop next year, he was going to set them free. So John raised so much crop that year, he filled the barn and had to put some in the house. So Friday come, and Master said, well, they done come that I said I'd set you free. Hate to do it, but I don't like to make myself out a lie. I hate to get rid of a good nigger like you. So he went in the house and gave John one of his old suits of clothes to put on. So John put it on and come in to shake hands and tell him goodbye. The children, they cried. And old Missy, she cried. Didn't want to see John go. So John took his bundle and put it on his stick and hung it across his shoulder. Well, old John started on down the road. Well, old Master said, John, the children love you. Yes, sir. John, I love you. Yes, sir. And Missy like you. Yes, sir. But remember, John, you's a nigger. Yes, sir. First John could hear him down the road, he was hollering, John, old John, the children love you, and I love you. The Missy like you. John would holler back, yes, sir. But remember, you's a nigger, though.
So Hurston presented a problem in the realm of anthropology as well, because it was not put forward in what they would consider to be a scholarly way, and yet the authenticity just oozed out of the work. One of the things that people collecting stories, predominantly white, collecting stories, the problem that they faced was that they were not insiders. So what they were told was not necessarily what was actually being said. And of course, racism and the stereotypes gave way in the presentation of a lot of that early material. Hurston developed, cultivated a way to become an insider in her anthropological activities. So while she was writing fiction, she began to develop her anthropological skills, her skills as a social scientist, and she was still in her own process of being Zora Neale Hurston. And what happened then is that her own life history, her anthropology, and her fiction began to weave into a very textured fabric, which makes her reading, whether you're reading her folklore, you're reading her fiction, or you're reading her essays, very intriguing.
Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing, until the watcher turns his eyes away in resignation, his dreams mocked to death by time. This is the life of men. Now women forget all those things they don't want to remember and remember everything they don't want to forget. The dream is the truth. Then they act and do things accordingly. So the beginning of this was a woman, and she had come back from burying the dead. Not the dead of sick and ailing with friends at the pillow and the feet. She had come back from the sodden and the bloated, the sudden dead, their eyes flung wide open judgment. The people all saw her come because it was sundown. The sun was gone. but he had left his footprints in the sky. It was the time for sitting on porches beside the road. It was the time to heart things and talk. These sitters had been tongueless, earless, eyeless conveniences all day long. Mules and other brutes had occupied their skins. But now the sun and the boss man were gone, so the skins felt powerful and human. They became lords of sounds and lesser things. They passed nations through their mouths. They sat in judgment. Seeing the woman as she was made them remember the envy they had stored up from other times. So they chewed up the back parts of their minds and swallowed with relish. They made burning statements with questions and killing tools out of laughs. It was mass cruelty, a mood come alive, words walking without masters, walking all together like harmony in a song. What's she doing coming back here in them overalls? Can't she find no dress to put on? Where's that blue satin dress she left here in? Where's all the money her husband took and died and left her? What that old 40-year-old woman doing with her hair swinging down her back like some young gal? Where she left that young lad of a boy she went off here with? Thought she was gonna marry. Where he left her? What he done with all her money? Betcha he went off with some gal so young she ain't even got no hairs. Why don't she stay in her class? When she got to where they were, she turned her face on the bander log and spoke. They scrambled a noisy good evening and left their mouths setting open and their ears full of hope. Her speech was pleasant enough, but she kept walking straight on to her gate. The porch couldn't talk from looking. The men noticed her firm buttocks like she had grapefruits in her hip pockets. The great rope of black hair swinging to her waist and unraveling in the wind like a plum. Then her pugnacious breasts trying to bore holes in her shirt. They, the men, were saving with the mind what they lost with the eye. The woman took the faded shirt and muddy overalls and laid them away for remembrance. It was a weapon against her strength, and if it turned out of no significance, still it was a hope that she might fall to their level someday.
She was not necessarily a well woman as she moved into these explorations in her anthropological adventures. She had liver problems, she had gastrointestinal problems, but they weren't something that she would highlight in her work. And from what I've read, it's not something that other people highlight as well, but I share that because that to me suggests that she was also not without her own pain, and how she chose to deal with that pain was to move forward with her work. She was married several times, divorced several times. She never, when she passed in January of 1960, she didn't have family around her. She wasn't surrounded by grandchildren or children or her family members to care for her. She really died alone. And so her steadfastness to be Zora Neale Hurston was evident even at that time, and she was working on a story even then. I mentioned that her publication journey began in 1922, and that she engaged in the anthropological work. Both she and Catherine Dunham went down to Haiti, and to both of their, as testaments of their own courage and commitment, they both were, in separate circumstances, initiated in the arts of what they were studying. So Hurston studied voodoo. She had gone to New Orleans and studied hoodoo as part of her anthropological work, but also because she was committed to knowing. And I think that really shows a lot of courage on her part. If we think about the work that she produced, she wrote an autobiography called Dust Tracks on the Road, which critics have said really has a lot between the lines, that it is more what she didn't say about her life that is intriguing than what she did say. She does borrow some of her biographical elements and place them in Jonas Gordvine, which is the first novel that she wrote. The bibliography, and just looking at Hurston's many stories and essays and early poems and her novels and what she was working on before she passed is quite extensive. And there are a number of I think Cheryl Wall, in her collection of stories, does a very good job. Stories and also novels. But she does a very good job in providing a literary chronology of Hurston.